Then we zoom out, we go, wait, the wife's weird. Something up with the wife. The organization's weird. Something's up with them. 3 weeks after the guy's dead, she's out there with sparklers. They're doing Cirque du Soleil. Something's off. Something's weird.
This person emailed me, and I'll put it on the screen, that they work at Aloe, and they looked up Erica's account. And it appeared that she had spent over $1,000 buying Aloe clothing the day after Charlie was...
Everyone grieves differently, but the way Erica Kirk allegedly handled the hours right after Charlie's passing has the internet absolutely shook. According to a source that sparked massive and sustained online debate, roughly 12 hours after Charlie was shot at Utah Valley University, Erica was allegedly on an online shopping spree at Aloe Yoga, dropping just over $1,000. That bombshell was first dropped by an anonymous Aloe employee who claims they accessed Erica's account and found purchases of black athletic clothing made on September 11th, just one day after the UVU incident. A lot of people initially brushed it off as a hit job against a woman who was, by all official accounts, a grieving widow in the rawest days of loss. But then internet investigators came through and found a photo of Erica stepping off Air Force 2 at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on September 11th wearing a black Aloe tracksuit.
The kids, get security, get the kids, he's been shot. I sprinted out of her treatment center. I just collapsed in the middle of the parking lot. Called our security. Yeah. Unbelievable nightmare.
Okay, so a little bit more there. She got the call with Mikey. She collapses in a parking lot. She had blonde hair. Like, that's what I'm looking for. Like, there should have been a lot of eyewitnesses to this scene of a woman collapsing. It also would require, of course, if you collapse in a parking lot, that the nurses are going to come out, escort you back in. How are you going to get from that parking lot? Are they going to call the police?
The timing and the specific outfit lined up with the purchase claim in a way that was very hard to ignore. Once those two pieces got placed side by side publicly, the conversation around Erica's state of mind took on a whole different and considerably darker energy. For months, Candace Owens has been pressing one very specific question. Where exactly was Erica when she found out about Charlie? Erica's answer has stayed consistent. She says she was in the hospital parking lot where her mother Lori was receiving treatment, and that she collapsed right there when she got the news. But here is where things get real uncomfortable. Not a single eyewitness has come forward to back up any part of that story. For someone who allegedly collapsed in a public hospital parking lot in the middle of a busy medical facility on a regular day, that complete silence is a very specific and very hard to explain gap. People are not letting that slide.
That Erica Franzfey, her maiden name, purchased $1,043.30 worth of clothing on September 11th, 2025 at 11:10 a.m. Guys, put this into perspective. I'm looking it up here. Charlie Kirk was announced to be at 4 p.m. on September 10th. Not even 24 hours later, Erica went home, woke up in the morning, and bought an Aloe tracksuit.
That absence of corroboration has led a growing number of people to believe not just that Erica wasn't where she claimed to be, but that the bigger, more pressing question is why she would allegedly feel the need to create a false account of her location in the first place. If Erica's whereabouts on September 10th are completely innocent and explainable, then why does the story she's telling have zero witnesses to back it up? People described as close to the situation have also come forward with a very specific and striking account of how Erica received the news of Charlie's passing. There was no impulsive emotional reaction, no spectacle, just a chilling and immediate stillness. The kind of composed response that people who know real grief say comes from somewhere very different than shock. It was described as the calm of someone for whom the news was not entirely unexpected. Someone receiving confirmation of something they had already been anticipating, rather than someone blindsided by the sudden violent loss of their spouse. That characterization has stuck hard with everyone who heard it because it is qualitatively different from what genuine, unexpected shock actually looks like. Then came the memorial, and insiders allege that certain PUSA officials and Erica herself made two things the top priority during what was supposed to be a period of public mourning: attendance numbers and merchandise sales. A replica tent, reportedly recreating the location where Charlie was shot, was allegedly approved by Erica for use at memorial events.
And you can see from behind me, this is a recreation of the tent where Charlie Kirk lost his life at Utah University in September, and people are taking selfies with it.
I can't.
People struggle to process that call through any framework involving real grief, because building a physical recreation of the site where your husband was taken and folding it into a ticketed public event reads like something far removed from mourning. Multiple sources have also confirmed that Erica was sending texts soliciting donations during and around Charlie's memorial period, actively fundraising off the grief and shock of his supporter base at the exact moment when that base was at its most emotionally raw and financially vulnerable. That combination, replica site and active donation push, is exactly what critics point to as proof that the financial operation was running from minute one, before the public grieving had settled into anything close to closure. Then there is the verbal slip that people keep coming back to because it is genuinely hard to explain away. At Turning Point's annual America Fest conference, Erica said the words, "once he was assassinated," before quickly correcting herself to "when" in the very next sentence. That one word, "once," carries a very specific implication. It suggests expectation, inevitability, the framing of someone anticipating a future event that was already understood to be coming, rather than someone looking back on something that arrived without warning.
But here's what I've learned the most in these past 3 months. Is that my husband, he deeply mattered on a multitude of levels, so much so that it proved even more once he was assassinated how much of a peacemaker he was and how much of a coalition builder he was. Because when he was assassinated, we saw infighting, we've seen fractures, we've seen bridges being burned that shouldn't be burnt. We saw a lot on full display.
She caught herself and corrected it fast, but people who study language know that spontaneous, unguarded word choices reveal the cognitive framing that conscious editing then tries to cover. The correction doesn't erase the initial slip, it puts a spotlight on it. Then there is the statement Erica made in an interview about not being afraid to face single motherhood, describing her mother Lori as the blueprint for how a strong woman independently raises children after a relationship ends. She framed this as the least traumatizing part of losing her husband. Critics jumped on two very specific problems with that. First, calling any aspect of your husband's violent passing the least traumatizing part suggests a relationship with that loss that most people simply cannot wrap their heads around. Second, and far more documentable, her single mother narrative has been directly and specifically contradicted by the evidence. Erica's father, Kenneth Franzvev, was present and actively involved throughout her entire childhood, functioning as a stay-at-home dad during her early years. After Lori's divorce and subsequent marriage to stepfather Larry Gwinter, Erica actually had two father figures actively participating in her upbringing.
Erica sat down for an in-person interview with the New York Times days after Charlie was publicly assassinated, and she confirmed to them that the least traumatizing part about Charlie's assassination was the prospect of her now having to raise her children alone, because she had seen the example set for her by her mother growing up.
That is not the raised by a single mother story she has been pushing publicly, and the gap between what she's been saying and what the record actually shows is too specific and too deliberate to be chalked up to a memory slip. Insiders are describing this false narrative as a calculated image construction, carefully designed to position Erica as the independently capable, resilient, single mother-raised CEO whose background justifies her taking command of TPUSA without any traditional political or organizational track record to support that move. And according to those same insiders, major donors have started pulling their financial support from the organization, specifically because they feel they were deceived. One donor reportedly said directly that TPUSA's priorities under the new leadership bear no meaningful resemblance to what the organization stood for under Charlie, that donations and political connections have been placed above community, mission, and the conservative values Charlie Kirk spent his career championing. The fundraising operation using Erica's grief as its primary engine is also reportedly losing steam because people have been watching long enough to recognize the pattern and see straight through it. Critics argue that genuine grief and genuine commitment to justice would look dramatically different from what has been observable in Erica's public conduct, particularly around the actual investigation into Charlie's.
Do you believe that Tyler Robinson murdered her husband?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think it is so hard for so many people to believe that reality?
Because it's too simple. Again, everyone always has to think there's more to the story. Well, sometimes there's not. I've seen the autopsy report. I've seen our case pulled together. I've been in constant contact with our lawyers, the prosecuting team. I've seen it all.
She is evil. When I watched that, I went, she's evil. I am so infuriated watching that back because she's lying. She's objectively lying and she's acting, right? It was because of that clip that when I went in to meet with her, I was going, oh, okay, maybe she has something that the public doesn't. I spoke to the, I'm in touch with the lawyers. I've seen the autopsy report. And then I sit down with her 72 hours later and she tells me, and her lawyer confirms to me, that they have nothing more than what the public has seen.
Passing her interview with Bari Weiss, where she claimed to have personally reviewed Charlie's autopsy, the investigative reports, and the evidence being assembled against Tyler Robinson, was subsequently called out by Candace Owens as containing serious inaccuracies. At the time Erica made those claims, Candace revealed that Erica apparently had access to no more information than what was already publicly available through basic news coverage. So why claim to have seen the evidence? Why frame yourself as someone with special investigative access when that access apparently never existed? What does making that specific false claim reveal about Erica's actual relationship to the investigation from the inside? Because here is the question that no satisfying answer has ever been produced to address. What partner who genuinely loved their spouse would not be relentlessly, publicly, and vocally demanding every available answer about how they passed and who was responsible? That is not a rhetorical question. It is the single most important question sitting at the center of everything that has unfolded since September 10th. And the answer that keeps surfacing, no matter how many times people try to look away from it, is deeply uncomfortable. Instead of demanding answers, instead of pushing investigators,
What are you guys for Tyler? What are you for Tyler or the other side?
Grandparents.
Oh, your grandparents? Oh,
I'm really sorry you're going through this.
yeah, it's tough for you guys.
Yeah, it sucks. Well, we're here to support them. So.
Yeah, we think your grandchild is absolutely brain, but I'm an investigative journalist, so
Well, I see. I'm
this way.
reminded what for the us that you do.
Man, you know, you're constant, I can tell you that you're very right.
instead of using her very significant public platform to chase every inconsistency and every unanswered question, Erica publicly forgave Tyler Robinson with an ease and a speed that stopped people cold. The weight of what she was supposedly forgiving, the violent and sudden loss of her husband in a public setting, makes that speed of forgiveness one of the most jarring and most discussed elements of this entire story. People who've experienced genuine devastating loss will tell you that forgiveness, when it comes at all, is a long and painful and deeply personal process. It does not arrive within days. It does not arrive with comfort and composure intact. It arrives if it arrives after a long road through something much darker first. Sources are now suggesting that the reason that forgiveness came so easily is that Erica already knows Tyler Robinson did not actually pull the trigger on September 10th. That forgiving him cost her nothing emotionally or practically because she understands, on a level that the public has not been given access to, that Tyler Robinson is not actually the person responsible for what happened to Charlie. If that is true, then the forgiveness was never really forgiveness at all. It was a performance with no emotional weight behind it, because you cannot truly forgive someone for something they did not do.
Obviously, the question is being asked at this moment right here. We had assumed initially that was his recorder or something. I can confirm, you'll see later, that it's whipping fast and it looks white when it whips fast, but that is in fact his necklace. That is his necklace. And I find that for some reason to be very strange that the necklace goes up first. You can see this obviously And by the way, there's no gore in this, so you don't really need viewer discretion because, like I said, which kind of broke the internet, the bullet didn't go through, and not only did not go through, it didn't even cause any sort of a mess. His perfectly white t-shirt was white.
That specific theory has gained serious traction among people who have been following this case in detail, not because it is easy to accept, but because it is the only framework that makes the forgiveness make sense. And when the forgiveness stops being an outlier and starts being a data point, the entire picture around Erica's conduct begins to look very different and very deliberate. The physical evidence surrounding the incident itself continues generating serious and sustained expert skepticism that has never been adequately addressed by any official source. Gun experts, hunters, and former military personnel, people with hands-on technical knowledge of ballistics and wound behavior, have consistently and independently raised the same specific concern. The .30-06 caliber rifle that Tyler Robinson allegedly used, fired at the reported distance, would produce wound impact and internal damage dramatically more severe and more physically devastating than what Charlie Kirk reportedly sustained. That is not a fringe opinion floated by conspiracy accounts on the internet. That is a technical assessment based on the known behavior of that specific caliber at that specific range, and it directly contradicts the official account of what happened. The .30-06 is not a small or subtle round. At the distances involved in an indoor or semi-enclosed venue setting,
UVU is lying if they said that the construction was pre-scheduled, and I'm going to prove it. Because this is Edward Thomas. He's the one that actually received the work order from UVU on Friday, 2 days after the event. Now let me show you the guy that he recruited to come in and help, because he realized when he got there Sunday morning, the earliest he could get in was Sunday morning. When he got there, he realized he bit off more than he can chew for the tight deadline, and he called in Daniel. Now this is Daniel. This is Daniel from Hardscape, Utah.
The ballistic behavior of that round is well documented and well understood by anyone with relevant experience. What was reportedly described as the nature of Charlie's injury does not align with what that round reliably does to a human body at that range. And that specific mismatch has never been explained, addressed, or even acknowledged by official sources. Yet the official narrative asks the public to accept that the bullet struck Charlie's neck and stopped there without passing through, with no intact bullet subsequently recovered from the scene. Think about what that claim is actually asking people to swallow. A high-powered rifle round, fired at close to medium range, strikes a human neck and stops, does not exit, does not pass through soft tissue the way that caliber reliably does. And then, on top of that, the bullet itself cannot be recovered intact, only fragments were found. Candace Owens and multiple other voices with relevant expertise have argued publicly and specifically that a fragmentation pattern of that nature is more consistent with an explosive mechanism than with a standard rifle round. That is a significant claim, but it is one grounded in the documented physical evidence, or more precisely, in the documented absence and fragmentation of that evidence. Fragments where an intact round should be. No exit wound where ballistics demand one. An official account that does not survive serious technical scrutiny.
The consequences of me being right is that there is a multi-agency cover-up to frame Tyler Robinson. Why? Because he then supposedly, an hour and a half after that Miranda recording, if I'm right, the Miranda reading, he supposedly confessed to his buddies on Discord. And if I'm right, who the hell wrote that Discord message? Who wrote it? Did Tyler Robinson write that Discord message? And if Tyler didn't write that Discord message and someone faked it, why? Why did they fake the Discord message? And if they faked the Discord message, did they fake the text messages? Well, we can't know because they're not going to introduce the forensic evidence of this. They're just going to introduce the screenshots.
And then almost immediately after the event at UVU, a cleanup crew was reportedly called in to clear the stage area. The speed of that cleanup has raised immediate and serious questions about the preservation of what should have been treated, from the first moment, as an active and critical crime scene. Crime scene preservation is not optional. It is not a procedural formality. It is the foundation upon which any legitimate investigation is built, because physical evidence, once disturbed or removed, cannot be recovered or reconstructed. The decision to clean a scene before that scene has been fully documented and analyzed is not a minor administrative oversight. It is the kind of decision that permanently limits what any subsequent investigation can establish with certainty. Nobody has provided a satisfying explanation for why that cleanup happened as quickly as it reportedly did. Nobody has identified who authorized it. And nobody has addressed what, specifically, was removed or disturbed before investigators had full and documented access to every inch of that space. Those are not small questions. Those are the questions that define whether a legitimate investigation was ever actually possible, or whether the conditions for one were eliminated before it could begin. Watching Erica not pursue any of these documented and specific inconsistencies is, for the people following this most closely, the loudest signal of all. A partner genuinely committed to truth and justice uses every tool available. They hire independent experts. They demand access. They challenge official conclusions that do not hold up to scrutiny. They are loud and persistent and uncomfortable to be around, because grief combined with unresolved questions produces a very specific and very relentless kind of energy that does not quietly accept incomplete answers. What has been observable instead is something that looks nothing like that. Erica has accepted the lone gunman narrative without visible reservation or public challenge. She has appeared at dinners alongside FBI Director Kash Patel with evident warmth and social comfort at a time when a genuinely grieving and genuinely justice-seeking partner might be expected to have a far more complicated and far more confrontational relationship with the institutional figures overseeing the official investigation. She has actively and publicly asked people to stop investigating, which is perhaps the single most counterintuitive position a grieving partner could take if the truth of what happened to their spouse remained genuinely unresolved and genuinely in question. Each one of those behaviors, taken individually, might be explained away. People grieve differently. People trust institutions to different degrees. People make different choices about how publicly to pursue justice. But taken together, the speed of forgiveness, the absence of public pressure on investigators, the social comfort with institutional figures, the active discouragement of independent investigation, they build a picture that an increasing number of people are no longer able to dismiss or rationalize away with individual explanations. The comments from people across the internet who have been watching this unfold capture the collective mood with a precision that no official statement has matched. One person wrote, "Erica was quick to forgive that young man because she already knows he didn't do it." That observation has been echoed thousands of times across multiple platforms by people who arrived at the same conclusion independently, without coordinating, simply by watching the same publicly available behavior and applying the same basic logic to what they observed. Someone who claims to have worked directly alongside Tyler Robinson in Street George stated clearly, "I worked with Tyler Robinson in Street George. George at a small electrical company, and I believe he is being framed." That claim coming from someone with direct personal knowledge of Tyler as a person, not as a narrative, adds a dimension to this story that the official account has never engaged with or addressed. If the people who actually knew Tyler Robinson before September 10th believe he is being framed, that is not noise, that is signal. And then there is the observation that perhaps most cleanly captures what the majority of people following this story are sitting with: none of it adds up. Not a single piece of this story holds together under honest examination. That is not the conclusion of people looking for controversy or manufacturing drama. That is the conclusion of people who started with the official account, applied honest scrutiny to it, and found that it does not survive contact with the documented evidence, the documented timeline, the documented behavior, and the documented gaps that no official source has ever moved to close. The pattern across all of it, the shopping, the stillness, the slip of the tongue, the false narratives, the fundraising, the forgiveness, the cleanup, the ballistic inconsistencies, the social comfort with institutional figures, and the active suppression of independent investigation is too consistent and too specific to be a collection of unrelated coincidences. Coincidences cluster occasionally, but they do not cluster this consistently, across this many independent data points, all pointing in the same direction, without that pattern meaning something real. Are you of the opinion that Tyler Robinson pulled that trigger on September 10th? Or does everything documented here, the physical evidence, the behavioral record, the documented inconsistencies, And the very specific and very revealing gaps in the official account point towards something considerably more coordinated, considerably more calculated, and considerably more deliberately hidden than anything the official narrative has ever been willing to acknowledge or address. That question is no longer sitting at the fringes of this story. It is sitting at the center of it, and the people asking it are no longer a small or easily dismissed group. They are a growing, informed, and deeply motivated community of people who believe that the full truth of what happened on September 10th has not yet been told, and who are not willing to stop asking until it is. Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is one that needs every voice in it. Hit like, share this with someone who needs to see it, subscribe so you never miss what comes next, and we will see you in the next one.